My role was to work with networks to help them build business cases and business models for the blockchain network. And I reckon I've worked with probably about 100 networks over the last 4 years. Most of them just fleetingly, but about 20 or so I know quite well. And what I'd like to do in the next 10 or 15 minutes is just share with you some of the things that I've learned, which I hope will be helpful to you about blockchain. So how should you start to think about blockchain? Well, it's not a bad thing to go back to 1995. And this was the first implementation of the Internet, Web 1.0, which gave us an Internet of information. It gave us an information superhighway. Now dial forward to 2008, 2009, and we now have a re-implementation of the Internet to give us a transaction superhighway. So in the words of Ginny Rometty, blockchain will do for transactions what the World Wide Web did for information. So the problem, which we're now fixing, is how can I transfer value in a transaction from peer to peer without anybody in the middle to make sure that that value has been transferred and that there is no double spend. Now, this is hugely transformative for markets because we have decentralized power. Information is power. So there's no central party that is holding information about that whole marketplace. Now, the asset that we're trading could be a Bitcoin, or it could be something moving up or down a supply chain. So if we're going to have this transaction superhighway, what are the components that we need to make this transaction superhighway work? Well, the first thing is we're going to need to know certainty of identity. Who am I dealing with? This could be permissionless, and I'm understanding a reputation, or this could be permissioned by way of know your customer and anti-money laundering. I'm going to need to know certainty of what I'm buying, the provenance of what I'm buying, be this a bag of cobalt or be this a part of an aircraft engine. And I'm going to need certainty of execution. If I do this, then I will get paid. Put these three things together, and we have the basis now for a marketplace where I can trade secure in the knowledge of who I'm dealing with, secure in the knowledge of what I'm buying, and able to transfer value and ownership at the same time. Now, if I tokenize that asset, this will bring a whole load of new liquidity to the marketplace, where I can now start to clear and settle at the same time. If I use maybe a stable coin, I can start to drive new types of secondary markets, and I can fractionalize, break the primary issuance up into little bits. So this gives me far greater liquidity. But maybe it's the last box on this chart, which is the most important, which is the incentive model. So we need to design an economic incentive model where it is in everybody's participants, so all of the people in the marketplace, to collaborate, to come into agreement and consensus as to what are good transactions that can be added to this transaction superhighway. So